but it's all about content quality. And at this point, it's how you stand out from the other. And that stand out is finishing. Now, for those of you that are in reality television that really deal with the finishing process, you understand the budgets that are allocated per episode for finishing and coloring and graphics. And let me tell you, reality television, it's not so good. It's really bad. But it's ironic because you can really tell. I know it's reality television, but when you look from one to the other, you can tell who's got high quality content and what you want to watch. And this is where it happens. And a lot of people are taking this in-house now, or they're outsourcing it, whatever the case may be. But the investment in the coloring process, whether you do it in-house or you outsource it, the return is dramatic. It makes a difference between a show getting picked up and not getting picked up. So we've got all this iPhone footage where I think I am the next Steven Spielberg, but it looks like iPhone footage. So here we go. The next process here, Fred's going to go for it. Fred's going to take that beautiful stuff that came over in the lock, and now he's going to make it pretty. Fred, let's go.
How you guys doing?
Fred Beeman.
This is DaVinci Resolve 12. This is the new version of DaVinci Resolve 12, and it is now NLE. Is the mic on? Can you guys hear me good? All right, good. So going into finishing and conforming, the main thing with conforming is it's never perfect. You always run into issues. So if you look up here in my edit index, all of these markers I've made are all the issues I ran into doing a conform, and I'm going to show you how I address those. So starting out, I'm going to go ahead and import my timeline and grab something from Michael. We can import AAFs, EDLs, or XMLs from other NLEs. I'm going to leave my project settings the same, so 1920, 1080. And so down here you'll see this is my finished timeline and how everything's replaced and all my markers are across the board and what I did. So when I import this, it's going to say some things are not found. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and say no. So this is the start of your conform process. Red exclamation points, and you're like, oh crap, I got to fix all this stuff. So I'm going to show you how you go across doing this. So first things first, these transition clips, they did not reconnect because they were a weird format, so I had to convert them to something else. So when you usually conform something, you can do something called force conform. So I can come up to these transitions and how these say converted. So I know that these ones are real and these ones actually work. So what I want to do is just force conform these clips to ones that work. So I can just grab this transition 12, force conform to that one, 11, force conform to this one, 35, force conform to this one. So basically all I just did was made these clips reconnect to media that actually did work. So now they're back online. These guys right here are my text tools that came across, but they didn't come across properly. So if I want to see what it did look like, I need to link an offline reference clip. If I come up to my sequence, I have our edit right here, our offline edit that we did right here. I can link this edit to my timeline. So if I right click and say link offline reference, link offline reference from here to my food truck war MP4 and switch this to my offline layout. This is usually how a conform's done, and you look at your offline over here and what your program monitors what you're currently working on. So if I scrub through, this is a good way to frame check. Okay, look at right here, I don't have a title, it's obviously offline. So a good way to start replacing these is I'll just disable these titles, and I'll lift all the things that I don't need up to a new track, and I'll just turn it off and lock it. That way I know where they're at and I still have a good reference, but now they're out of my way and I can start working. Same with this guy, I'll just put him up here. So the first one, food trucks are coming. I'll just do a simple title tool replacement. I'll bring in a text tool, drop this down, trim it up. Food trucks are coming. Just a quick type, and obviously white on white doesn't work too well. So we're going to swing the color and center it up. We can change the fonts, sizes, all that stuff. But these are just simple text replacements. I don't want to do any crazy finishing work because I'm going to send these titles to Ronnie, and Ronnie's going to build me brand new 3D titles that replace these chunks throughout the process. So what I'm going to do with this text tool, just so I have a good reference in my editorial things and I don't have offline, is I have a finished one here, and I'll just grab those other text tools that I have, which are these guys, and I'll just bring them in for now so we have something as placeholders, because later Ronnie's going to give me even more cooler titles to switch out with. So if I turn these back on, Oh, sorry. Let me just lower this guy. If I just paste these in, so we have our title tools, enable them. So the battle is on. We can frame check that, so that one's okay. Get hungry, we can frame check that one, that's okay. And food truck wars, we can frame check, that's okay. So the titles have been replaced, and I force conform my transitions. So now I need to replace these other two, looks like they're Photoshop elements. So food truck 1 and food truck 2, I can come up and force conform to these clips because they weren't just connected properly, but I had the assets. So I'm just telling Resolve, hey, this is exactly what was reconnected in my files. And then this last one was just another title tool. We can bring this guy back in here too. And I can just paste him in. So this is like the nitty-gritty of what you go through with conforming. And a lot of things that people don't realize is there's slight frame adjustments that get messed up. So if I frame by frame this, and say we get to the end of the shot, that frame hits, and it obviously doesn't match our offline. So with Resolve being a full-blown NLE, I can do frame slips, I can do frame replacements. So I can just come in here, and this is basically online editing, where I'm fixing frames. If I go to the end of this shot, you can see that there's a frame hit right there. That's not supposed to happen. And that just happens when you're coming over through a Conform or other weird things with the data. But this is how you can quickly fix those things that might prevent you from making that deadline and getting the edit done for the client in time. So I just fixed the 3 frame slips that I had wrong. I fixed the titles, and I force conform these transitions. Now what I want to do is kind of spice this up and add some looks across all of my shots. So if I go to the first shot and I jump to my color page, this one looks like it was already color corrected somewhat. But what I can do here is I'll just add a simple, we'll just do a simple DSAT. So I will bring up my keyframes. We'll add a custom keyframe right here. And I want him to, the saturation to turn on right when he takes a bite of the sandwich. So I'll put a keyframe right about here. And I'll go to the head of the clip and just crank my saturation to 0. And another one here to 0. So when he bites the sandwich, he turns the color. Very simple, easy effect, done very quickly with no rendering. And then I can come up and I can tweak his color a little bit. Looks like there's some blues and the blacks, so I can kind of offset that a little bit, crush the blacks, bump the mids and the sats. And these are just quick looks that we can do very fast.
You see, it's tedious stuff, but when you see it happen in front of you, that's the difference between
And this look is on and off, so that's just a quick grade. Now I'll skip over these titles because Ronnie's going to jump in those in the Fusion. For this shot, this guy's taking a big bite of the sandwich. Looks like he's kind of framed weird, and if we look at our offline, we can tell that he is. If I have an offline reference loaded over here, I can switch this to mix wipe so I can see what my timeline is overlaid on my source. So with having mix wipe on, I can easily zoom and be able to see how the frame is supposed to be and fix those easy frame adjustments, repos, scales, time frames, rematching or retiming. So this just allows me to be able to say, okay, my offline is a little off. There was a scale done here. I can easily fix this and zoom those in. So just a quick way to fix repos, which is a common thing in conforming. If I jump ahead to him now that he's reframed, it looks like he's already kind of color corrected. So what I'll do here is I'm going to add a power window and do a vignette. So I'll just add a window, add some feathering to that window, and really focus on his face with this, and feather it, and then bring down the levels around him. That way when I turn off this mask, you can really see that I'm really isolating the focus just on him. I don't really care about these people over here. So that's just a quick vignette on him, and it really draws attention to the subject and what's happening. Skipping over this title, because Ronnie's going to take care of it in Fusion. We're going to go to her skin tone looks a little weird. So I can come up to my vector scope and turn on my skin tone indicator. This line right here will help me decide where my skin tones are supposed to land. So I can use that and it kind of adjust her. Maybe a little DSAT. Now she's kind of a little yellow. So we can kind of just help dial that skin tone a little bit better. Do another quick look on her with some mids and sats. And then I can also add a vignette on her as well. But the point of all this is I'm using these similar tools to make different looks, and I'm doing it very fast, very quickly. I'm not rendering. It's just very, very efficient in how to be able to make these deadlines, because that's what people are expecting these days. They want you to be able to do all of this. If I come back to this shot, these guys are, this color looks pretty good, so this is just an easy saturation. I'm just making the colors pop a little bit more, and same with this one, just a easy saturation and boost. And we'll come back and we'll end up popping in some new VFX and audio in just a little bit, but when I'm done with all my renders, I can go to the deliver page. I can pick any format, any wrapper, any codec. I can build jobs in my render queue over here. I can remote render to a different machine, but overall, Resolve can handle all conforming capabilities, nonlinear editing capabilities, color graphics, tracking, and we have a free license as well.
And it's free.
Yep.
No, not really.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very
I'll be right
much.
back.
That's great. So I hope that shows a point. It's very tedious, and you got to kind of go through the demo and see it, but you can see the difference that it makes, obviously, right? I didn't know what those people did. I thought they just sat in dark rooms all day, but they don't. So the next point, as we go through, you saw him, he put Eat It on there. We did not get the rights to Eat It, so we can't use that at all. So now we're going to go to audio. Right now we've got a Pro Tools 12 rig in the back on a brand new S6. Can you tell I'm an audio guy? Oh my God, I love it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to record an original piece because we can't afford to use the other pieces. We're going to bounce it down. Now, some of the new features of Pro Tools 12 for all you audio people that are out there are faster than real-time bounce. That means you don't have to wait for a whole half an hour, or a full 2-length feature film length to bounce down your mix. Now it just goes and it's done. And it's on the sand, you drag and drop, and you're done. And it works. Also, what's coming very soon is collaboration. Really super cool stuff coming in with 12. You're going to be able to create flat files. You're going to be able to compose with some guy in Kentucky, another guy in Istanbul, and it's all real time. Everybody's got a little Skype window. They can talk to each other. They can all jam. Super cool. But also, it's just a really new, great platform. So that being said, right now, we've got to get some music over this. So let's do that. We've got Robert Van Kuren, one of the hottest audio engineers in Southern California. If he hasn't already worked on your Pro Tools station, he will soon. He's amazing. All right, so let's do it. Going to bounce it real time. Now he's going to bounce what we just recorded. We probably won't use all of that, but all we need is 30 seconds. And that bounce, you'll see a little line go through if you look over there because he's not on the window, but boom, it's going. And it's going to be exported right now on this box right here, Facilis, which our finishing team are right now dragging that file into the timeline and they're going to cut it. Now before they do that and they show you that, put it all cut together, now we're going to show you what Blackmagic can do with graphics. This is cool. So what we gave them originally, I think, were some JPEGs of these trucks, just nothing, just a piece of fire in the background. This is your guys' job. You guys make the content. We just put it all together and make it work, right? So give us a break here. It's not as good as what I know some of you guys can do, but we're doing it. So here we go. Go ahead. Let's jump right in.
All right, awesome, guys. Mic on? Yeah? Hello, 1, 2, 3? Yeah? All right, how many people here are compositors or use compositing in your workflow? All right, we got a really big crowd of compositors.
Woohoo!
Okay, well, I'm about to show you why that's a mistake. See, a lot of people say, I'm just not going to get into the whole node-based effect systems and all of that kind of stuff for what we do. Okay, well, I'm going to show you why that's technically not true. Fusion is a node-based system, but it has a template-based. So you can have presets from everything from text to particles. We have a shader library for 3D and tons of tools, 25 years of development, 2D, 3D, you name it. So let me show you why this is something that you would use, for example, in a tight schedule. So let me go through. I just brought some of the presets that you just saw in the bin. And I want to show you how fast Fusion is. Okay? So here's an example. Other examples. These are all presets, right? So text scrambling, for instance. In this case, we have a little rotation, a little thing. And then I'm going to show you here, jiggle left to right. Okay, let's actually see what that is. It's just a text tool. And the text tool has a modifier called follower, where it just basically follows what you're doing. Change the timing, and it's a longer delay between each one, right? But no rendering. It's fast, fast, fast. Okay, so now what if I want to do right to left? So I could do right to left, or I could do inside out. I could pretty much on the fly, and even I can go in here, let's say, we'll go right in here, we'll type food truck wars. So it's doing it as I'm playing it. Now you want to get fancy, we go into shading. So let's go ahead, we're in the first layer, so we have all these different layers. To throw in a color, go in here, let's add an outline, make this one yellow. We'll add a little shadow, which you can't see because we're not in the mat. Anyways, it just plays. You can make all of these modifications. For instance, I'm just going to go in here under shading, and let's just play around and give it some color. Let's give it a little border. Let's increase the thickness of that border. Why don't we go in here? Like I said, we drop a drop shadow in here, and now you can see there's a drop shadow. We can go in and pretty much do anything. You could take the red lines, for instance, adjust the softness. I'd say we're just going to, let me take the transparency off. We're just going to adjust the softness on the Y. So you get this really cool sort of effect of that kind of stuff. And again, this is all, you can go ahead at any point and just change what's in there. I have to spell it right though, right? So example, very, very, very quickly. Now it doesn't just mean 2D. Right? We have also 3D presets. So here's an example, exactly the same thing, but functioning in 3D space. So in here I have random, I have inside out. But the interesting thing is each tool can hold numerous amounts of presets. So you can very quickly say, I'm going to swap to different text, different functions, so I can quickly see, do I like inside out? Do I like that? Things like that. Now, making this look like Chrome is very easy. You just do a replace material. And we go into our library, and for instance, we take the ever-famous Chrome that everybody loves, and we just put it in here, view that, hit play, and we have our, let's actually type something that's longer. Text, inside out. Right?
Hey Ronnie, is this also a plugin with Media Composer as well? Does Fusion have a plugin?
Yes, Fusion is part of Media Composer as a plugin.
What?
So you can actually run it from there. So yeah, so again, it's very, very simple. If you wanted to change durations and all that kind of stuff, we have a very, very sophisticated timeline. Right? So you go in here and you see that. There's my timeline. And I could say, just show me the selected node. And there's my jiggle. and I've got all these different things, right? I've got my opacity, that kind of stuff. Go into the Spline Editor. I'm going to show you the something cool here. This is my, and I say only one, and this is my angle on the Y, for instance, right? And then you have your layout width, you have your position on path, and you have your sizing. So in this case, you can go in anywhere and just make adjustments on the fly and have these things inherited in your animation. If you're, probably not enough change to see. But it's preset based, right? You build your stuff, right? If I worked on this show, I wouldn't start a minute after he's done and start, finding cool assets for food truck wars. I mean, I'm on the show. So I would have tons and tons of presets. And we work with those presets. So for instance, here's a preset we have in our bin that just shows people how to create a timeline element, right? For scrubbing, for graphics. We have tons of those, and you build them, and essentially you just drag them out of the bin and say, well, here, from my food truck wars, I'm gonna grab a, what do you call it? Here, the template for displaying backgrounds. Boom, just drag it in, view that, and this is the background that I will show you that we're using for the end sequence, okay? So you really work in templates. You work in templates. You could work in 10,000 nodes as well, but in this environment, drag and drop, switch it, hit play, change the color, add outlines, and watch it happen. So now I want to talk about how do I change all of these, do some really cool dynamic stuff. Well, again, these transitions, I'm going to show you what I have done. Let's go ahead. I'm going to load up something called Generation, which is part of our studio. And I'm going to show you some of these transitions that were done, and then let's just talk really quickly on how we go about doing that. So you guys obviously now see I've got the text. You saw me throw Chrome in and just type some words. That's exactly basically the preset that I throw on to the 3D logos. All right? So we repeat the same thing. Different background. Again, another thing, different background.
Ooh.
And then a completely different, ending that we just use the same elements and juiced it up.
Cool.
But if you look, these are the elements that we create, right? For the wars, the battle begins, food trucks are coming, that kind of stuff. And all that really is, if you really look at it, the food trucks are coming one, for instance, is we have the displays template, which I was just about to show you before, right? So if we go and look at this, what do I have? I have the food truck. I just make it an image plane, and then I key it. So I have just like a little bit of alpha channels, blur it, and then I use this displace node, which essentially will displace the truck based on that. So if I take the blur off, for instance, you'll see that that's the truck. And if we go down and squeeze that down, so we see how I create that truck effect. It's just a keyframe that I'm not interested in that. Great, so I get rid of the truck, bring another clip in, pump it in here, change the animation a little. Right? You have to really think about the work you do is in advance. Right? You want to have these little packages ready so that they can, go, go, go. So if you want to look and show you what that final sort of comps looks like, here is a comp for, say, the battle is on, right? So that's the whole thing. This is basically my text preset. This is a box for text. I kept that in my bin. I have all the presets that I want, for the different things. I've actually set a render range, right? So I've got all of these set up, and you saw how I set those up. And in here, I just change my text, do that, whatever. So that's my text layer. This is the displacement layer, and all I do is feed it different things that I want to displace. So in this case, I want to use gloves that smash each other, and I'm going to use that, and I'm going to use that to drive my displacement rig, right? So now you see the displacement is basically being done on that. Throw in your shader, and voila, right? You've got your, what do you call it? Carbon fiber. So each one of these things, you don't redo, right? You don't redo. That's my camera light pack. For when I do logos, I always want the camera at 0, 0, 0, and then back on the Z. I always want a light, 3/4, one in the back. Very simple. Just that's your light package. Why would you redo that every single time? So in essence, this is essentially how that is done. Now, let's look at the truck ending very, very quickly, and you'll see that that whole thing is a very, very simple, real simple. Just the two layers, they're just coming in. Very simple. It's just a little keyframe. No big deal. Then we take the fire element, right? And so I've got the fire, bring it up, and I'm going to put it in as a background for the trucks. Okay, so right now I'm using a macro that we include called the wrapper. That was made by me. So the wrapper itself is like a super comp. It allows you to do everything from wrapping one or another, view the luminance of what you want to wrap so that you can actually see the areas that you want light wrapped, edge and color wrapping and all that same thing. So the next thing we did is, again, this is the beautiful part about nodes. This one image is driving a bunch of things. The other thing it's driving is a displace, right? So this displace is essentially rippling my truck, and it's based on this action. And I could bump up the light power for you to kind of get a sense of what it's doing. Right now you could visually see that. So now I have a little animation with the, the getting a little brighter. Just a little bit over here. You can make your adjustments, make that go a little faster, things like that. Very, very easy to manage your timelines. Okay, so then the next thing was the logo. So once again, we took the default Chrome package that I have with the light out of the bin. That's what you get, right? Let me clear this. Right, so that's what you get. And this was what came out of my little kit, right? This little Chrome thingy. But our shaders have an input. And I can actually take this fire, and I just offset it a little bit in time, just so that it was black a bit at first. And I'm just going to feed that into my Chrome. So now my logo is not working.
Nothing could go wrong.
Right, exactly. All right, so now my Chrome logo went from Chrome to actually having the image in there. So when we see it play, it now has that effect. Now, I put the lights in and everything, so when I turn lights on, you could see that you're only capturing it as the fire is moving and based on that motion. Great, render that out. That's rendering, that's render speed. And let's actually displace it. So same tool, right? Here, one for here, and let's just combine the two together. That's what we get.
All right.
This is node-based compositing, and it is not as complicated as people think, and it's actually a very viable solution considering it's free.